My name is Gary Inlet. My creators have been making Kigurumi masks for more than 17 years already, and today we are going to share our knowledge about how full-head masks are usually locked together. And, well, actually this is the second take of this lecture, because the first take was, well, it was a bit awful, and the narrative part. So I'm recasting this lecture with, I hope, with better voice and more clear. So let's get started. And at first, why we actually do talk about this stuff is because Kigurumi masks, full-head Kigurumi masks, are usually consist of two parts, at least two parts, maybe more. But the reason is that the mask is, well, as you can see, I'm also a full-head Kigurumi character, and the mask enclosed the head completely, so you're like a ball-bearing doll, actually, and then, so because the neck opening is usually smaller than the head of the performer, you need to somehow stuff the performer inside the mask, well, at least performer's head inside the mask, and you need to somehow make it easy for performer to get in and out without using too much force. So we need to split the mask in several parts, usually two parts. It may be a facial and then rear part. It may be split in half. It may be even just the back side of the mask opens, and the rest is like a 2/3 mask. And in this case, we will have to somehow connect those parts and make the connection secure. So there are different locking mechanisms that interlocks both of parts together. And the main challenge of this mechanism is to, from the one hand, the mask needs to be closed securely, so it will not open during a performance. And on the second half, you need to be able to open it pretty easily when you need it, for example, backstage, or to take some rest. So we need to use some mechanism that would allow this stuff. And well, sometimes several performers are even use the locks that utilizes some keys or some tools to open. So people who are not allowed to open the mask will not be able to do this. For example, once a person asked me to make a mask with relatively huge clasps, and those clasps needed to have the keyhole, so if someone would ask that person to take off the mask during a festival or a Renaissance fair, then that person would just point to those locks and just gesture that, well, the mask is locked, so I cannot reveal my face to you. This is the face you have to deal with. So even those clasps was actually unlocked, then just the fact that there is a keyhole and something like that would be enough to prevent people from insisting on opening the mask. But of course, you do not need to keep that keyholes unused. So again, it's not very practical actually to rely on some external keys. But well, it is an option actually. So we have to mention it. And if we have a three-quarter mask, the mask will open like this, and there is enough space to put the mask on, but you need to actually put the mask and then rotate it, so everything would get in place. In this kind of masks, the locking mechanisms are usually not needed because the paddings themselves work pretty fine. And in other kind of masks, there are some extra ways to secure mask on the head, so it will not slip off the head and so on. And of course, we need to mention those mechanisms. Before we move to full head masks, I'll mention some of them. For example, if straps or thick rubber bands or something like that, with or without buckles, with plastic buckles, that are usually stuffed back at the back of the head. And to install that stuff, you either have some slits on the edge of the mask, or maybe some buckles or some hole or some some rods or something like that glued inside the mask, so there are elements to, so the band can be fed through and be secured on the head. And usually use a relatively thick band, because the thicker the band, then easier this it to the head to that stuff. Also, those bands can be used to act another property, that you can attach the wig to those stripes and let it stay in place. Well, some extra points of securing the wig to stay in place. And this stuff usually added at final stage of assembly, so that's easy. The other variant is the soft back part of the mask with a zipper. Well, some people actually added extra hair. It's a band with a hair here, it's attached here and have some magnets at the lower position, so the zipper is not visible. Others keep the zipper visible, and you can also use just a regular zipper runner, or some people use actually the YKK locking zipper runner for this stuff. And you also can add some rings at the bottom for reasons. Again, this is the options, and this stuff is usually attached at the later stage of mask creation, at the stage when you create the wig, or before that. Sometimes it's attached to the hair, sometimes it can be just a layer under the wig. So again, several variants. Another thing is this kind of industrial attachment, these plastic suspension systems for the stock helmets. And it is here because usually you cannot just put the mask on, because the chin would be in your way, so you have to actually open this back strap, open it, then put the mask on, and then close back strap and fasten that back strap back together. So it works like some kind of a lock that you can that keeps your mask secure on your head. So now what next? Before we actually move to our full head Kigurumi mask, we need to address these flaps, these overlaps between the front and back part of the mask. So, for example, I do this all the time on my masks. And as you can see, you see the overlaps here, you see overlaps here, and as you can see, they alter the side, so there are some overlaps from the front side to back side, there are some overlaps from back side to front side, and those overlaps prevent the mask parts to move across the seam. So when the mask is closed, you cannot move the parts in the direction of the seam, because in this direction there is another part of the mask, in the opposite direction there is some kind of locking mechanism, but in this direction you need that flaps, and you need the flaps on both sides alternating, so it would prevent these shifts altogether. And again, there are some hooking mechanisms like that, the hooks, the pins, like that. And also, if you can see at the bottom here, on this, you can actually give that some round edges. So, in some masks, some 3D printed masks from China, there are very smooth, very round edges between on the seam, on the front part, on the back part, so it will not pinch the hard tie, won't pinch the skin when you pinch the skin when you put the mask on, but you actually can move those round edges. The round edge from the front, for example, would be visible, and round edge from the back would just be pushed inside the mask, so then again the actual seam will look like, you see, it's smooth, there is no round, but inside again, because of this overlap, because overlap allows you to have that smooth round edge, smooth round vertex. Oh, again, just forgot to mention that instead of these overlaps, you can also use pins, for example, metal pins that are round metal pins that are glued to one side of the mask, so you have the pin on the one side of the mask and the corresponding hole on another side of the mask, and you also connect those together, and those pins will prevent the mask, the parts of the mask, the front and back parts of the mask, moving from side to side the same way as those overlaps. So it's definitely a possibility. And again, those kinds of pins are usually have a slightly conical shape to make it easier to align those and to close and open the seam at that point. So now let's move to clasps. The clasps are historically one of the first variants for full-head Kigurumi masks. You can still see those clasps on professional Kigurumi masks and on different Super Sentai helmets. So you can usually see it here under the ear area or behind the ears. Well, and there is a variety of different clasps available. For example, one of the smallest clasps is like here. Another clasp that is this black variant, very thin. The clasp The clasp taken from the mask I restored recently, and you can see here you have this hole for the lock, and also, for example, of one of my earlier masks, you can also see the clasp here behind the ear. And easy, pretty common stuff that you can install on your mask. And again, some Chinese mask makers use them these clasps from the luggage with the keyholes, and well, it is a very easy, very legitimate solution. The only problem with the clasps that are usually installed on 3D printed masks, from my point of view, is just their position, because they tend to put it above the ears, and I think it's a mistake. From engineering standpoint of view, the better place for those clasps is behind the ears, because the lower you put them, the better the performance, the lower the stresses for the mask shell. And I even made the full video regarding that stuff. It is somewhere in this playlist already, about the position, about basically the engineering masks for 3D printing, and there are some insights on the clasp position as well. Also, I need to mention that you can make a recess in the mask to make that clasps a bit flusher with the mask surface, so they will not stick too much to the side of the mask. But also I need to mention some complaints my friends told me about those kind of clasps, and it was about actually the luggage clasps in the mask they ordered from AliExpress, when the clasp was placed here above the ears, and one of the problems was that hair kept being caught in those clasps, and you had to be careful to prevent the hair to get inside, to get in the way, and because hair got in the way, got stuck in those clasps, they prevented the clasp from actually getting closed. So if you have just an irregular wig, then there may be some inconvenience with this regard. But actually, if you have a styled wig or plastic wig or resin wig or wig made of some kind of fabric or soft materials, this won't be much problem. Only the position. Well, and again, those stuff is one thing I need also to mention is that you actually will have to open and close each of those sides individually. The next thing I want to mention is, well, skates buckles, motorcycle helmet buckles, and some kind of that stuff. So this is the chain buckle for the, I believe, the open face motorcycle helmet. This is the buckle from the, I believe it was rollerblades. So what, well, how this stuff works? Well, actually, in the nutshell, it's the same as the clasps. There are some minor differences. One of this is that this stuff usually is not lockable, so you will have to be inventive in this regard. And the other thing is that, as you can see, it's a it's a ratcheted thing, so there is not just one position. It can be adjusted on the fly. So if you have a mask for example, professional performance reasons, and there are different possibilities of different people to wear that mask, this can be another point of adjustment of the mask size. In any other regard is basically another version of clasps. Well, I also need to mention that the material of the lip of that buckles are usually plastic, and it's a bit easier to paint, and the paint sticks to that particular material is a bit easier. So if you paint over the mask, the paint will stay longer, but it usually not much case. Well, for example, again, if you will look at Irla, all the characters, this mask is about, well, maybe 11 years or 12 years. It's pretty old, and as you can see, the paint of the clasp is still intact despite so long time. So this is the thing. Well, next, a honorable mention of King Mask. It's used as a locking mechanism. With their ideas, well, it's a shame that it wasn't mine, but well, again, a lot of people, a lot of ideas, a lot of inventive stuff. So what did they suggest and used for their masks? Well, there is another manufacturer who utilizes that thing. It's basically you have overlaps in the seam area, so there is the front part and the back part, there is an overlap inside, and you align two holes at the ear area and use an ear as a pin from each side. The ears are not just stuck inside, you need to push it through and rotate it a bit, and there is some kind of pin notch connection, notch hole connection, something like that, or maybe a magnet connection that just keeps ear in the correct position. And because there are the front and the back parts overlap, two holes and the pin inside, so the mask is securely closed. And the biggest advantage of that thing is that you actually do not reveal how the mask is open. You have the front part, you have the back part, you have the seam, and that's it. And also, if you treat the mask as a constructor set, you can just change ears. Again, you have a separate stock of ears, the separate stock of faces, the separate stock of back parts, and all that interchangeable. And again, eyes, tongues, extra accessories, all that stuff. So, a lot of varieties at your disposal. Then one of the downsides of this is that there is a seam between the mask surface and the ear, and hair can get stuck in that seam, but usually it is a problem for the masks that is more a problem if the mask has an attachment hinge on top of that, and you open and close it, and that seam is usually more tiresome to manage because hair keep getting inside that seam. And in my cases, when I had my one of my masks with separatable ears, that ears were just bolted to the face part and do not serve this purpose. And in that case, the bangs, the hair from the front kept getting inside and stuck there, so it wasn't very pleasant. But in this case, it's almost no problem. And again, if your hair are pre-styled, if your hair are styled with a glue or just made of some other material that regular synthetic wigs or real wigs, so that's not a problem at all. Again, you will have to use each side to make, adjust, and close each side separately. Can you lock it with a key? Well, Saki managed to do that. Yeah, nice. The other variant is tubular locks. It's locks that are usually used to lock the drawers, the post boxes, something like that. Here is another one of them with the lever inside of the key, and you can see there is a specially designed metal hook. So I designed this metal hook because, well, it's a bit more precise than something you can have in stock, but the actual body of the tubular lock is the stock one. And there are several sizes, and I use 18mm wide and 16mm high locks. Well, 16mm is because it is the smallest lock in the height, and 18mm in diameter is because there are actually two diameters. One is 18mm, one is 10mm, and 10mm locks are pretty fragile to our purpose, so I will not recommend to use them. I tried them once, and well, it got broken when I opened the mask with that lock. So I opened the mask, and I didn't stop pushing the key. When the mask gets opened, I just pushed it a bit further, and it collapsed. So I changed that lock and that key to another stuff, and never used those locks in any other mask. So from this perspective, so you can see in the back of the mask, here it is. This is the seam. The lock is on the other side. There is a pin inside the mask here, so it engages with the pin, and it works. If you also examine the 3D model of meter mask I uploaded a year ago, there is a same idea there. So there is a place for this kind of lock, and there is a pin, hook to answer that lock in the front part. Again, both of them needs to be engaged and disengaged manually and each side separately. And also there is a hint: if you would want to use those locks with the keys, look for keys with the same number, because there are only 1,000 variations for these locks. So you will be able to have the keys that are identical from one on the other side, so there would be no difference which key to which side. It will open anyway. This is the tubular cam locks. Another variant is the push-in pins. It can be like an automatic pen. It can be just a two-positional button. Just if you would use the buttons from electronics, choose the larger ones because they are more durable. Also, some indexing pin or for example also known as plunger pins. They are usually used to a post-processing stage of the mask when it's not painted yet, but you're starting to assemble some elements and put them in place. So in one side of the mask you have this pin, and the other side of the mask you have a dedicated hole that you either need to push the pin out of the way, connect the mask and push the pin down, or there is some slope in the part with the hole, so it will push the pin down automatically, and then the pin gets in position and locks both sides of the mask. Because it's usually spring-loaded, you can use this, for example, for the indexing pins. You can connect those pins for a Bowden tube with a pulling cable inside, and move the open element somewhere else in the mask, for example under the hair or something like that. Or you can keep those rings hanging around down your mask somewhere where it is not visible. And again, the advantage of this is that it actually is not visible from the outside. It's kept completely inside, or almost completely inside. And here on the shimmering mask, you can see those kinds of pins. It's again these pins, like it's a pin like this. So we have, well, I need to open. So it's a lock like this, and when you can see, you can just push this lock and it stays in place. And to release this small pin in this kind, you need a key, so you pull the key and release the pin. So this way. Well, again, these kind of locks are not so very secure, but if that lock will break, it will automatically open the mask. So in this case, it's not as dangerous as the other kind of locks for breaking. What's next is, this is my thing that I am making usually as hidden spring locks, made of sheet metal, or about 4 millimeters in size. So let me show you how it looks inside. This is without one of the panels of the lock. So you can see there is a hook, there is another hook that engages. This is the part of the assembly. So you can see how tiny it is on the side, and because it is tiny, it had to be made out of metal. There are 2 millimeter sheets in the side and 1 millimeter sheets on the other. It's stainless steel. And to open it, there is a lever, and you can see there is also the cam lock with a lever and the Bowden tube. So when you need to open this lock, you need to, you can see I am rotating the lock and it just opens. It disengages and opens the mask from the both sides of the mask at the same time. And because the locks are springed, when you close the mask, it just closes shut. Currently I use this tag on most of my masks. So, well, only if you would see, no, you will not see anything. So this is the mask, and you can see the lever rotating. the paddings, and because all that stuff is hidden under the paddings. And again, you have the mask. There are 3 points of connection, one in the forehead, a hinge, and 2 hooks on either side. So you push the mask in the way, push the mask together, close it, and it stays closed until you release that lever. And again, everything is just inside the mask. The other, well, we have this in this shell, for example. Again, this is a different kind of Bismuth, different iteration. Actually, this is the latest iteration of this idea, so we have less amount of parts, the hook. So when the mask comes here, well, do you see? I hope you do. It pushes the hook down, then hook gets engaged, and there is a pin on the other side. Here you can see the pins that are actually bolts. So again, 3 points of connection. And the mask gets closed and it stays closed. Another method of connecting parts together, and it's magnets. Well, it is not those magnets with tags in the shops, you know, that round things with a pin that is locked with another thing. No, it's not that stuff. It's just magnets. And magnets are not a good idea to use if you would use it as a primary source of connecting parts of the mask shell, the front, the face part, and the back part. Because, well, just imagine that you need to perform and you need to dance, you need to jump, you need to maybe fly in the aerotube or swim somewhere, and all these activities would introduce a pretty serious loads to your mask shell and to the connection mechanism. So the magnets that will keep the mask together must be pretty strong in this case. But when the situation changes, you come back to dressing room, or you just want to have a break, and now those magnets, those connections need to be openable, so the magnets should be not as strong. In this case, those situations, those requirements basically contradict each other. So you cannot have the magnets again strong enough for performance and weak enough for convenience at the same time. So I tried that, and back then different people also tried that. For example, Irla has this stuff. Actually, there are magnets down here. So, as you can see, it keeps in place, but some extra movement and it gets open. But those magnets helps to keep the mask face in place when you are closing it with other extra elements. And it becomes pretty useful in case that when you have, for example, several face plates for the same mask. So instead of a hinge, you have magnets, and you place the mask in place, and magnets keep it oriented in place and position it just like it meant to be. And at that point, you can actually use the actual locking mechanisms to secure the mask in place for the performance. Well, in case of self-locking, spring locking mechanism, that's not the case. You do not need magnets at all. But in case of, for example, clasps, this would be pretty useful. Well, our next stage, electronic disengaging. Well, some of Chinese models did this stuff in their masks. So, for example, catfish have a mask that can be opened with a key card. Well, interesting idea. Basically, you open doors with key cards. Why not open the mask with key card? Well, but I think that this thing is questionable, and the reason that this is questionable and this can be very inconvenient, because the electronics, well, is pretty sensible for humidity, and it needs to be placed inside the mask. So there can be a lot of stuff go wrong. For example, the battery can run out in this electronic mechanism, or maybe it can get unpaired with the smartphone, or it can get reset because some moisture gets inside, or it can just get shut off. And there are two actual possibilities in this case. Either you will be locked in your mask and you will have to basically break free out of it, well, when I recorded this video first time, and it was a pretty terrible sound, and I tried to make automatic YouTube subtitles. It just gave me this particular place get a brilliant phrase that you smash your head into the wall and break free. Well, in Russia it was even more epic sounding, like not just smash your head in the wall and break free, but fly to the freedom, something like that. Something like that level of epicness. So you either will get stuck in the mask and have to break it open. Well, because the masks are usually 3D printed, in this case, well, it's not a big problem, but you still will have to deal with all that broken parts, and have to find a way to repair it. Or there can be an opposite situation when the battery gets dead, and if it's made in the same way, for example, as the door locks, it will just disengage the lock completely, and the mask just gets open during performance, so it would be also very inconvenient. So handle this idea with care. Well, and the rest is flaps. If you remember, we already mentioned flaps in the context of aligning parts of the mask together, so they won't move in directions across the seam. But the flaps also can be used as a locking mechanism. Again, in the part with the ears as the interlocking mechanism, I mentioned that there is a large overlap inside the mask from the back part to the front part to accommodate that connection point. But the flaps and the overlaps themselves can be also a locking element. For example, we have the Mania Unis mask here, part of it. Well, unfortunately, the middleman who was responsible to ship that mask was a pretty dumb middleman, and when the mask gets to its owner, there was slightly more parts than was shipped. So well, it's just broken. But I can show you how it works in this situation. So you can see there are some indents inside. There are also flaps on top, flaps on bottom. You can see that these flaps also are rounded, so there is no pinching. Again, you see this indent, and on the front part, you see this flap. Again, and this post right here that gets into that indentation. And because of, well, if it would be complete, then you will have those parts from all the sides. So you just put them together, squeeze it a bit to align that part, and then those parts get interlocked. And do not move anywhere until you squeeze it again to release those elements from one out of another. Also, there are possibilities that you can use some garment hooks, some garment buttons for this, some stripes with garment buttons to secure that loosely, some elements loosely. That is how it can work and how it can be performed. Well, you might think that why not use, for example, Velcro? Well, I would discourage to use Velcro because it ruins heavy tie. But well, again, in that particular mask of Mania units, the hinge between front and back part was actually performed with some kind of Velcro, but it was basically, it could be just a stripe permanently glued to the surface as well. It just was not a stripe, but a Velcro in this case, so so it doesn't interfere. And again, as you know, in the video about paddings inside the mask, I said that it's okay to use Velcro to secure paddings inside the mask, and in that particular case it was the same, because Velcro wasn't used to open and close mask, it was used just to align part of the mask pretty semi-permanently. Well, it's almost all the stuff I wanted to tell you. Well, but there are actually some more. In my practice, for example, in the early days, in our practice, we used a stripe. Well, a simple thread like you use in a boots or something like that, and the simple fixed thread that was glued to the chin inside the front part of the mask, and then it was fed through some tubes glued inside the back part of the mask. Then that thread gets out of the mask somewhere back here. Well, not here, but in that mask somewhere back in the neck. And to close the mask, you needed to just tighten that thread and tie the knot behind your thread. And also, instead of the metal buckle that I usually use now, there was another thread that served as a buckle on top of the head. Well, though it's actually an option, but it's not as convenient as the options we've discussed here earlier. And also I've tried different types of elements that could close. I tried fast access, I tried, well, some jewelry stuff, the jewelry buckles, some tiny stuff that you use on bracelets, something like that. It was pretty inconvenient. You have to wiggle it in place, and it was very difficult to find where those stuff actually was situated at the time, at a certain stage of putting the mask on. So you needed help, something like that. So I didn't even mention those stuff in particular in this presentation. Again, it's not all the options. I think you can find out, can come up with another ideas, another options. There are a variety of stuff, and if you are here in this channel and watching this video, you are definitely inventive people, and you will find something as well. Well, maybe you even try to make the mask as a large puzzle that you can assemble around the wearer's head. Well, it won't be practical, it would be rather an art project. So, like that. But again, thank you very much for being today with me. Thank you for listening to my mumble about this different stuff. About hearing my voice, hearing my breathing, hearing my thoughts and my delays in my thoughts, because, well, I actually try to come up with some ideas during this talk, not just have a pre-recorded, pre-made text, but actually, well, with my thoughts again on the topic right now. Again, thank you for watching. I hope this time my voice and my speech is more recognizable, and you actually was able to listen it in the background instead of trying actively to watch the subtitles. So thank you very much. If you have any ideas, any suggestions, you're welcome to the comments. You're welcome to watch another videos about other aspects of mask making. See you in the next something. Bye bye.